Hey guys, hey chess lovers, what's up? Kaspa here. Welcome to KaspaChess. In this video, I want to show you how to correctly play the Tennison Gambit, which falls under the Zuckertot opening or the Reti opening, as you like calling it. So this video is split into two parts. The first part is the theory part. The second part is where I'm going to play against two chess players on Lichess and show you how this opening works. But I should mention that I'm more interested in the opening other than what is going to happen in the middle game or in the end game. So if I mess up in the end game or in the middle game, that shouldn't worry you. You can do better yourself as long as you understand how the opening works and the ideas behind the Tennison Gambit. So stay tuned. Actually, knight to f3 on move 1 is the Reti opening, and so when you play knight to f3, your opponent is expecting to see moves such as pawn to c4 and pawn to g3, where you want to fianchetto your bishop and castle short side. Then you start expanding on the queen side, then you develop your pawn to d3. This is all what black is expecting. From here, we are going to prove black wrong. The other idea behind knight to f3 is that we are preventing black from playing pawn to e5 right away on move 1, and so we are inviting black to respond with pawn to d5, which we want to see. So from here, most of the times you're going to see your opponents beginning with the move pawn to d5, which we want to see on the board. And then from here, we're going to respond with pawn to e4, inviting black to take this pawn. And after they take, I recommend that you play knight to g5, attacking the pawn on e4 and also eyeballing the f7 square, which is the weakest square on the board. So let's say black defense. Here, I recommend that you play pawn to d3, attacking the e4 pawn once again. And then if black takes, you take with your bishop. So in this position, there are quite a number of moves that black may respond with, out of which only two seem to be correct, such as knight to c6 or pawn to e6. So the rest of the moves are considered to be blunders in the world of this gambit. So black should be very careful from here, because let's say if black plays pawn to h6, we are going to surprise him with a move knight takes on f7, forking both the queen and the rook. So the idea behind this knight sacrifice is that if black takes, we're going to give him a check, covering the whole of this diagonal. Note that the king cannot go back. So the only possible move is for black to take back the bishop, leaving his queen undefended. And this is how we win black's queen in less than 8 moves. So in this position, allow me to open the Lichess database in order to show you how many chess players have fallen for this same trap. So here's the Lichess database. You can see people still fall for this trap. So it's not like an easy trap that you should just ignore or something. And you can see here some 2300 rated player was also a victim. And this was a rapid, match. So other chess players that are falling for this trap are these guys here. This just shows you how strong the Tennison Gambit can be, even against the strong chess players. Okay, instead of a pawn to h6, what if black decides to play g6? Well, same story. We just capture on f7, and if black takes back, we give him a check again, covering the whole of this square and winning his queen again. What if he plays what if black plays pawn to c6? Well, the same story, because none of these moves are protecting the queen. So in general, none of these moves prevent us from capturing on f7, unless black plays knight to c6 or in some positions pawn to e6. Okay, so after pawn takes on e4, knight to g5, black can also try something like bishop to f5. Interesting trap. So after bishop to f5, we have an interesting trap beginning with queen to e2. Here it may seem as though we are only interested in winning back the pawn on e4. So let's say if black plays knight to f6, we are going to give him a check, attacking the bishop, the pawn on b7, and also checking the king. And the interesting thing in this position is that it's already bad for black, because let's say if black blocks with a bishop, we're going to capture the b7 pawn, attacking the rook. So if he thinks he can defend the rook by bringing the bishop here, now right here I'm going to give you 3 seconds to find the right continuation for white. Okay, hope you found bishop b5, which pins black's bishop to the king. Note that now the bishop cannot take our queen because it is pinned. So it looks like the only move to unpin the bishop is by playing queen to d7. Well, this turns out to be a big blunder by black, because you can now capture this bishop. If knight takes, you capture the free rook. If queen takes, thinking black is still defending the rook, now it's game over, checkmate. So what if queen to d7? Again, same story, you're going to capture the pawn on b7. If black plays queen c6, you're going to pin the queen. And if the bishop comes back to d7, we're going to take the queen. Again, same story, same checkmate. So this is one line in which black can easily lose his queen in less than 8 moves. But again, after queen b5 check, you do not necessarily have to capture the pawn on b7, because when you're playing against a strong chess player, he may find the solution. And so I recommend that after, let's say, d7, you just bring back your queen and attack the f7 square. So, and if black plays pawn to e6, you just continue your normal development and win back your pawn. And then from here, you're going to, start developing. Okay, so in this position, black may also try to play something like queen to d5. So what's the idea behind queen to d5? The idea is that black is protecting his pawn on e4 and the f7 square, and he's also attacking your knight, which is on g5. So here you need to be very careful. If you just do something stupid like, let's say knight to c3, you're going to lose your knight for free. So here I recommend that you play pawn to d3, which protects your knight and at the same time attacks black's pawn. So from here, most of your opponents, believe it or not, they're going to capture this pawn, after which you should capture with the bishop. So in this position, it looks as though the pawn on g2 is hanging, but that's not the case, because if black takes, we are going to play bishop to e4, attacking the queen, and this almost traps the queen. So in this position, the only sensible move for black is to play queen to g4, which saves the queen. So from here, you're going to capture the queen, and then if black takes the queen, then you're going to reveal this move. Bishop takes on b7, attacking the rook. And from here, as you can see, it's already game over. There's nothing that black can do to save the rook, and positionally we are better. Now in this position, if not black's queen taking on g2, your opponents will also try pawn to h6, threatening to capture your knight. So from this, now in this position, what I like doing is this. I like playing a bit with my opponent's mind, with the move pawn to f4. So what does this move do? If black takes my knight, I'm going to give him a check and win his queen at the same time. And funny enough, when I was doing my research, I discovered that there's only one game in the whole entire Lichess database with this same position. And let me just show you the Lichess database. Here it is. Can you guess who this guy is? That's me. So you can see that I trapped in this same position. I trapped a 2290 rated chess player. This is a high rated guy. And I ended up winning this game. So this just shows you how powerful this opening can be. Now look at this. If let's say black tries to play pawn to c6, here I'll just capture this queen because he cannot capture, it will be open check. So here the only sensible move for black is to take my bishop, and then I'll take his pawn with my pawn. Okay, so what about knight to c6? Okay, this move just leads to a normal type of game. So here I recommend you just do the normal development, and you just make sure that you are fast in development. Let's say black plays e5. Here you can, let's say black plays e5. Here you can even castle short, and then the next moves you play bishop to e3, knight back to e4, and then you also consider pawn to f5. So this is also a playable position. Now let me show you the f3 line, which I mostly play against strong players in the Tennison Gambit. And the reason why I started playing the f3 line, which I'm about to show you, is because of moves such as knight to c6 as early as move 4. Because knight to c6 not only defends the queen, but it also shuts all our Tennison Gambit ideas down. Okay, so let's try the f3 line. So the f3 line goes like this. So same story, black will try to respond with a move knight to f6, and here instead of playing pawn to d3, we are just going to continue playing normally with moves such as knight to c3, attacking the e4 pawn. And I can guarantee you 100% most of the times black is going to respond with a move bishop to f5, after which you should play bishop to c4, attacking the weak f7 square. So here you're going to see black responding with a move e6, defending the f7 square. And here in this position, d3 is not a good move, because it can lead to some complicated positions that you cannot even handle. So in this case, you play, instead of d3, you now play pawn to f3. So what's the idea behind pawn to f3? Here, if black takes, which they are going to do most of the times, you take with the queen, eyeballing the b7 square once again. So from here, it looks like you are just aiming to capture the b7 pawn for black, but that's not the case. That won't be the case. All the red arrows, believe it or not, are blunders, and that's what makes this gambit to be cool, because it is very easy for black to go wrong. Because it is very easy for black to go wrong. They have to find the only move knight to c6 again, which is somehow difficult to find in positions like this. Let's say, what happens if black plays h6? Again, in this position, we're going to surprise our opponents once again by capturing the pawn on f7, forking the queen and the rook. So in this position, if black takes, we now take with our queen. We now take the bishop with our queen, and there's nothing that black can do. Let's say if he plays queen to d7, we go b3, and then if g6, we play queen to h3, maintaining the pressure. And then if, let's say, our opponent plays bishop to g7, we play bishop to b2, and then if rook to e8, we castle long. If black's king goes to g8, we play rook d e1. If king h7, we take the pawn on e6, and we are up material. So this is one line which I like playing against the strong players out there, and it really works. Now, after queen takes the bishop on f5 and king d7, what I do not recommend is castling short. Always remember this move. So castling short loses immediately to queen to d4 check, taking the bishop, which is why I recommend playing the simple pawn to b3. Okay, so back to this position. If pawn to c6, we have the same story. We just capture the f7 square. So what if black plays knight to c6? What do we do? Here there is an aggressive line, and there is also a positional line. So here, surprisingly enough, we can still take on f7, and if white takes, we take the bishop. And here the most challenging move, which I think most of your opponents will not play, is knight to d4, which attacks the c2 pawn and our queen. So in this position, I recommend playing queen to h3. Then if black takes on c2 check, you just simply play king d1 and maintain the pressure. Now you may ask, what happens if black captures on a1? What happens is as follows. Black loses immediately no matter what he does. So you start with the move queen takes e6 check, queen g6, queen f7, queen h6, d3 check, g5, h4, knight h5, knight to h5, then h takes g5 check, queen takes back, then rook takes h5, checkmate. As you can see, the king has no way out. The king has no way out, and the rook cannot be captured. The queen is also pinned to the king by the bishop. Okay, so after knight takes f7, black may also try queen to d4, which I think is one of the most challenging moves. So from here, I recommend you just play knight takes h8 and everything is back to normal. Okay, see you in the next video, which will be the second part of this video, where I'll be playing against two chess players on late chess, just to demonstrate how this gambit works. And just like I mentioned earlier on, I'm more interested in the opening theory of this gambit rather than what is going to happen in the middle game and in the end game, because I believe you guys can do better. And not to mention that I've also included the link for part 2 of this video in the description below, so you guys can check it out.